Hello, sisters in Chapter DW. Cindy Ansel here. And since we're not able to be together for our May meeting, I decided I would video my program so you can watch it whenever you feel like it. And hopefully we'll enjoy it. Okay, our theme this year for our book was A Walk to Remember. And the program that I did, the first program I did, was about the barefoot mailman and how the barefoot mailman carried the mail from Palm Beach down to Miami. And I love reading about the barefoot mailman and enjoyed that program. This program is about another walk, but it's a walk on the beach that I began taking when I turned 62. When I turned 62 and Joe and I started talking about retirement, it dawned on me that I might not always live in Lake Worth, Florida, 5 minutes from the beach. So I thought I should take the time to enjoy where I live, my beach access, and also take the opportunity to lose some weight and get in shape. So I decided that I would be walking on the beach every morning, get up early, which is definitely not my cup of tea. Get up early and walk about 3 miles, 1.5 miles down to the buoy and back before I went to work at the library. So off I went on my beach walking adventures. And at first, when I began walking, it was all about the walking. How fast I could walk. I was doing all kinds of things, wanting to get the most out of it as far as burning calories and getting in shape. So it was all about the walking. I soon learned that it's easier to walk at low tide when the sand is packed down than it is at high tide. But I walked, since I also learned tides move around, sometimes I was walking when it was kind of hard, but kind of muscling through. Of course, the first thing I noticed, other than walking, which soon I had the routine and it down so that I didn't have to think so much about the walking, and began to make more observations about what I was doing. So, of course, the obvious thing was to watch the sunrises. And I learned that, no two sunrises are the same. They're all different. And I also learned that taking a picture of a sunrise, don't bother, because the picture is never going to do justice to how beautiful the sunrise is. So I started watching the sunrises, and then I started looking around and seeing the shells as I was walking. And I couldn't just look at the shells all the time or I wouldn't get my walking done. So I made myself a rule that I would walk fast down to the buoy, and then on the way back I would start looking at the shells. So of course I had to get myself a handy dandy shell guide so that I could see what the different shells are, and I started picking up shells. And I made a rule that I only could pick up perfect shells, because otherwise I would have tens of thousands of these things instead of thousands, which I have now, which is a huge collection. I soon discovered that there were 2 shells that I would find just about every time I walked. And one is a turkey wing. This is a big turkey wing. Looks like this. Looks just like a turkey wing. Here's a little one. Okay, so just about every time I walked on the beach, I could find a turkey wing. Turkey wings are easy to find. There's nothing that looks just like one. So turkey wings are very easy to find. And you can see by my little collection here that I have hundreds of them. The other shell, which I found almost every time I walked, was an olive shell. Olive shells look like this. And they're very pretty, shiny usually. And they're sometimes little, sometimes big. But these are olives, and they're also very common on our beaches. And I found an olive shell every time I walked. Even if there are no shells, you can usually find those too. 3 other shells I'm very proud of finding. It's always fun to find a conch. We're always looking for conchs when we walk. And this is a little tiny one, but this is a queen conch. And you can see that she's a queen conch because you see her beautiful crown. So she has a big crown, and that's why she's a queen conch. She's a little one, but she's quite pretty. And then this shell here, this is a fighting conch, the state shell of Florida, I think. And you can tell that it's a fighting conch because it has the brown right here. And this is just a kind of like an average sized fighting conch. And then this one, this pretty one here, is another conch, and it's called the milk conch because it has the white inside. So I was able to find this, which I was very happy to, because a lot of times when you find conchs, they're not all together, but this was a whole one, so I was very happy about that. My two prized shells, the ones I love the most, this is one called the sundial shell, and you can see it looks like a sundial with the hours, and that's the way it looks on the bottom. This is the only one I've ever found, and I'm very happy to have found it. I would say they're rare. I don't know that they're rare, but it's the only one I've ever found. And then this one is called, I have two of these, but this one is called a flamingo tongue. And it's a shell that looks like this, and it's known by the prominent ridge that's right here. And I don't know if that looks like a flamingo's tongue because I've never seen a flamingo's tongue, but that's the name of the shell. And I found two. Of course, this one has a hole in it, but this is a perfect one. So those are my two favorites when it comes to the shells. All right. So the next thing I want to tell you about is one of the most exciting experiences that has ever happened to me my whole life. And that happened when I was walking on the beach one morning. It was July 5th, right after the 4th of July. I was walking, and I noticed there were lots of crows on the beach. It was very unusual. You don't see crows on the beach. They might be up where the people are picnicking, but they're definitely not on the beach. But this morning there were lots of crows, and I couldn't figure out what was going on, so I walked up there where they were, farther down the beach, and sure enough, out of the sand were hatching sea turtles. And the little hatchlings were doing their darndest to get to the ocean. They were working as hard as they could. And the horrible crows were picking them up, dropping them in the sand on their backs, and stabbing them with their beaks and killing them. Not eating them, just killing them. And so I was horrified by that. And as my daughter says, I went all Moana on them and screamed and waved my hands and scared all the crows away, and then started picking up as many sea turtles I could to help them get down to the water. And I was able to save 24 of the little hatchlings, helping them get to the water and swim out to the sea. Sadly, I couldn't save them all. Some were too far gone. But it was so exciting. I'd never seen anything like that before. Since then, I have seen other hatchlings. One time, when we were having a bad batch of seaweed that was about a foot deep, they were trying to get to the water and they were getting all tangled in the seaweed. I was able to get some of those, help them get to the water. But those sea turtles are amazing, and I tried not to think about the fact that as I was helping them to the water, there probably were other predators sitting there in the water waiting to eat them, but I didn't think about that. I just thought about those little babies and getting them into the water. They're amazing. And I've talked to some of the people whose jobs it is to monitor the nests as they're there in the morning, and we have more sea turtle nests on our beaches here in Palm Beach County than anywhere else in the world, according to this girl that I was talking to. It's amazing. Loggerheads, green turtles, all different kinds. So needless to say, sea turtles are one of my favorite sea creatures, and this experience was just over the top for me. So I really enjoyed. So as I was walking day after day after day, and of course, as different as it is, it sometimes falls into like a little bit of a routine. But I began to, in my head, start thinking of poetry as I was walking along, and I started by just remembering lines from poems that I knew and just reciting poems that I knew. And then I decided I would start to write some poetry. So I decided I would try to use the haiku form because it was a challenge to try to get the words into that format, the 5-syllable, 7-syllable, 5-syllable format of the haiku. And so I was trying to describe my beach walks and using that format, coming up with poetry. The challenge was when I would come up with a poem in my head was to remember it until I got home to write it down because I never had a pencil and paper. So I would repeat it over and over to myself and, change some of the words till I think I got it right. So I started really looking forward to every day coming home with some kind of a poem about the beach walk or the beach or something like that. So the first, and my volume of poems, I call it Bad Beach Poetry. And one of my things that I don't enjoy is listening to people read their poems. So what am I doing? I'm inflicting on you my bad beach poetry. But hopefully they're short. Okay, so the first one I wrote after my encounter with the crows and the sea turtles. Crows stand as sentries, watching for small signs of life. No, not on my watch. So that was my first poem I wrote after I was so changed by seeing that whole sea turtle encounter. Okay, and I also mentioned the fact that we had that bout with the seaweed where it was like a foot deep everywhere. Trying to walk in the seaweed when it's a foot deep on the beach is no fun. But I did write a poem about the seaweed. The beach is a salon. Her clients rush the shore. Long, short, straight, curly, all natural. Blondes, brunettes, and redheads. With one request: make it waterproof. I like that one. And that's not a haiku, but I still like it. So that was one of the ones I did. And I'll read one more. And this one I wrote at the end of the spring when it starts to get really hot. And I'm walking on the beach and I noticed that the beach, the ocean in the summertime seems to get worn out just like we do. And the water seems to be heavy and the waves are flat and everything just slows down. It's kind of like heat oppressed. So this is one I wrote. Summer is coming. Long, heavy days under the hot sun. Even the ocean gets lazy. This is no time to make waves. And you know that you're not going to ever have a program from me that doesn't mention a book. So I have my book here, Anne Morrow Lindbergh's Gift from the Sea. Can you tell that this is a well-loved book? It is in really bad shape. I can't tell you how many times I have read this book. This woman is amazing. This book is amazing. Every woman should read this book. It's absolutely just a fantastic book. And I love it because she talks about going to the beach and she talks about shells and then she talks about a woman's life and the different stages in a woman's life and different emotions and different things we go through. She has so much insight. It's a fantastic book. And so I recommend, it's never gone out of print. It's still in print. And it's a wonderful read. Like I say, I recommend everyone to read it. And if you've already read it, find a copy and share it with a friend. We have one at the library, and sometimes they come in as donations, and I always take them because I always want to have a copy that I can give to someone because this book is that great. And I'm going to conclude with something that she writes at the end of this book. The waves echo behind me. Patience, faith, openness is what the sea has to teach. Simplicity, solitude, intermittency. But there are other beaches to explore. There are more shells to find. This is only a beginning. So, I hopefully will be seeing you all soon. Bye.